computer. There we go. Okay, it is a rare Thursday meeting of this storytelling therapy course on November 8, 2018. And three of our members are not with us this evening, so we are recording especially for them. And our agenda is we'll talk about the process of doing this storytelling for coaching or counseling with a volunteer client. Shankar, I'm hoping we'll talk about, if you don't have your own self-guiding story, at least we'll look at metaphors relating to your experience, and then presentations. Moshumi, I'm hoping you're going to present about clowning, yes, and also play, and also Sue Jennings, and Shankar about transactional analysis, and especially how aspects of TA relate to aspects of what we've been doing here. Okay, so Shankar, let's begin with you, and tell us. Let's see. We have to remember your life story, right?
Yeah.
What I remember is the school was, they were trying to regiment you,
yeah.
And you didn't like to be regimented.
Yep.
So you found a way to find freedom and adventure, and that you eventually got into, what was it, paragliding?
Yep.
Much later, of course,
Yep.
many years later. And you would have had to move to Pune, was it, to really go into that professionally?
Yes.
Does hang gliding involve going to the top of a hill or a mountain and jumping off?
Yes.
So there are hills like that in the Pune area?
Yeah, near to Pune, there's a place called Lonavala.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it is the outskirts of Maharashtra, I believe.
Uh-huh.
So somewhere like that. So I went there and I did my initial training there.
Okay, but then you decided to come back to Chennai, and you've gotten into various intellectual and emotional challenges and adventures.
Yes.
So to me, the paragliding becomes a kind of a symbol of your love for nature and excitement and adventure and challenge. And what I've noticed about your life story is that you have found a way to remain unregimented, but at the same time get involved with various institutions and systems, so that you don't reject structure altogether. You just do it on your own terms. Okay, so now what metaphors or stories have you come up with in relation to yourself?
Today morning about 3 o'clock, I started writing the story. I didn't know I was not able to sleep. What I've written is it's a story between a tall tree and a small grass. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is the tall tree tells the grass saying that I am tall and I'm more dominating in this particular place, and people whoever I am being used. Okay, like I give coconuts and I give everything, but you grass are fit for nothing and you're so small and people actually they are stamping on you. But what happened one fine day, there was a huge tsunami. So what happened, all the buildings, the trees actually from the root they have come out and they have fallen down, but the grass was able to bend, and after some time the grass came to its original position. So what I actually get from the story is, it is not like how tall or how short you be. Okay, everybody has their own advantage and disadvantage, and we need to be mindful of it, and we need to appreciate ourselves, the advantages we have. At the same time, we need to be conscious and sharpen our disadvantage in such a way that it does not focus at the same time the other person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, review what happened at the beginning of the story. Who was the conversation between?
A tree and a grass.
Ah, and what did they say to each other?
Yeah, they were not telling much, but it was a more of a tree. No, maybe I can share you the write-ups I've done in Word. So maybe after the class ends, I have given detail, but I'm just giving you a bird's eye view as to what is the gist of the story.
Well, just tell us again. What did the tree say to the grass, or what did the grass say to the tree?
Mhm. So that's what the grass was not talking much, because since the grass felt the grass is more inferior than the coconut tree.
Mm-hmm.
So the coconut tree started dominating because it is one of the tallest trees in that particular horizon.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the coconut tree, each and every part is used, the coconut, the leaves, and the stem too, and they use it for rock pulling, all those things. So the coconut tree feels that we are giving more to the society. At the same time, we are supposed to be more superior than the other trees or grasses or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in one situation where there was a huge water strike or tsunami or something like that. So what happens is the grass was able to bend itself, but the tree was not able to bend. So the whole root has come out and the tree has
Oh,
fallen.
the tree was uprooted.
Yeah, uprooted.
Oh.
So the advantage of the grass is it was flexible, but here the tree wasn't flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make sure that everybody has their own advantage and disadvantage, and we need to concentrate more on our advantage, and make sure how we can change our negative to positive. So that is the story I would like to
Great.
help to the world.
Okay. It reminds me of various other stories too. But Hema, hello.
Hello, hello.
Oh, good, good. Okay, we're just listening to Shankar's self-guiding, self-inspiring story, and the duality is there: a blade of grass and a giant, strong coconut tree.
Mm.
But it turns out the blade of grass is well. For one thing, it reminded me of the story where Ram pets the squirrel and says to the other animals, I appreciate everybody's contribution. Just because the squirrel is small, you shouldn't make fun of it. So there's that theme of every it's the thought that counts. Uh, but then there's also this theme of that it's almost a proverb that a flexible plant will survive in the storm, but a inflexible tree or plant will either be uprooted or broken.
Yeah.
Isn't that almost a proverb or a saying? Is there some saying like that in English or Tamil or Hindi? It'll come to mind.
No idea.
It'll come to mind later. Okay, good. Okay, so those two messages are there. The importance of flexibility and the importance of intention and contribution, which is not, it doesn't matter how big you are, it matters your heart. Okay, good. Okay, and how do you feel that relates to your life? have people told you that you're small or that you're not important or something?
What I was telling is
Hmm.
again coming back to square one.
Hmm.
When I was doing my first standard to 10th standard, more weightage was given for education,
Hmm.
and they did not see another path which a person can have.
Hmm.
So even though I scored pretty well, I scored about 80, 85%, but still, I personally felt that a person can't be or should not be analyzed with all the streams. So each and every coin has two sides. Same way, each and every person has his own methods or his own ideology and his own attitude towards each and every work.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe at that time I was not able to understand as to what I was good at.
Hmm.
So only after completing my 10th standard, I was thinking like, okay, there are lots outside, which is exciting more. And once that particular environment I had, which was broken, once I came out of that particular negative box or something,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to move to an autonomous living, is what I would say.
Good. Great. Okay, so that story just kind of reinforces and confirms
Yes,
the value of effort and flexibility and persistence.
yes.
Mhm. Good. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments, questions? What's the title of the story, Shankar?
No, I don't have any title. I need to frame it now.
Make one up, frame it.
Uh, Maybe later.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's hear about your processes of finding a volunteer. And I know this was a challenge for some of you. It may still be a challenge, but it's really it's the real test to see if you have a strong sense of what we're doing here. It's one thing to listen to me talk. That's pretty easy. It's a good challenge to apply it to yourself, as you've all done now. Oh, Hema, you're also going to tell us about I hope, a story in relation to yourself. But I was saying it's a challenge to apply it to yourself. But the real test to see if you've internalized it and really have a clear sense of it all is if you can teach it to and practice it on another person. But Hema, have you come up with any metaphors or any stories relating to yourself?
I haven't because it was a gap for me. I couldn't do it along with everyone. I did plan to share from my life experience. So after listening to Shankar, I got into the track like the healing story, which I can say is like earlier also I have shared about um, the setback in my father's the business loss
Mm-hmm.
made me to think about I should bring my family a good status.
Mm-hmm.
Though I had a chance to work as a teacher, I wanted to create an opportunity to be an independent person and make my own visions come up and bring out all my potentials and make my status improve. That way, I wanted to be an independent earner.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one more thing, what happened in my after my college days, before my marriage, we are brought up in an orthodox family way, like a very conservative family setup, and my parents were seeking alliance for me. And few hopes were there in my mother, like the maternal people, those who were interested for wedlock, and they ignored or they said no to me, like because we didn't have big assets. So that came to my knowledge, like people value only money, not the qualities in a person.
Hmm.
So I should have that money. So that way, I didn't want to be a, a employer in a person in a company. So I wanted to make my own way of earning. So that's how I started the school, and after which also where I was not having um, the financial independency. We took partners in the school system, but the way I see things was not there in the partner. Earlier they came saying that we would like to join you, and this is a nice, honest job and all. It's a dedication to the children, and we are grooming the future India like that and all. The way their sweet quoted words made me think, oh, they're all like-minded like me. And after joining, the very first year they started demanding whatever the money they invested, they want it immediately the same year. Whereas I've been working 10 years and after which they joined. So that gave me a lesson: do not trust people just like that blindly, and have to be careful while communicating. And then started checking my words, or the way I speak.
Okay, well, I see your school as a transformational experience, certainly for the students, but also for you, that it helped you transform yourself into an independent person in a leadership position. And I think from what you've described, your school is designed to help the students also find themselves and, uh, uh, also become strong people. So,
Even the teachers who come here, I don't see that they are a good listener. I don't expect them to be very smart teachers. If they're ready to take up the job and they're very humble and they're very good listeners, I do choose them as teachers, and they're very great teachers and they enjoy teaching. Like I can say, they want to make their life like me.
mhm.
I see that qualities in them, whether they are ready to take care of their life, their family. That way, I do talk to them, coach them. More than supervising, I do coach them a lot, make them a leader inside their classrooms as well as in their families. I do tell them the same person lives in the families, not a different person. So a lot of transformation in their families also happen, and the family members they come and thank. That brings a lot of happiness to me.
Okay, so you and your school are a transformation machine or a transformation agent. Somehow, King Midas, whatever he touched, it would turn to gold, and it turned into a problem. But I think whatever you touch, you try to, help it come alive, mm, become itself, self-actualize. Yeah, so if I was going to,
Maslow's hierarchy.
I'm sorry.
Maslow's hierarchy. That
Yes. I might have mentioned I am preparing to write an exam in about 3 weeks on organizational psychology and consumer psychology. And if I pass it, I will get a master's degree in psychology. It's the last of 10 exams.
Okay.
So I think even next week, I will give you all a presentation about story and storytelling as it relates to consumer psychology and organizational psychology. But one of the topics certainly is people's emotional needs, both, consumers, but especially people in organizations. And Maslow's needs are what? It begins with that people need physical safety, immediate physical safety. You know, like it's not too hot, it's not too cold, no one's attacking me at this moment. And then the next step is the next step is a sense of security, not just for this moment, but for the foreseeable future. So we can relax because we have shelter, and it seems it's a stable situation, and we have relatively long-term security. Then the third one is, I think, belongingness or affiliation, connection with other people or organizations, that we're not alone, that we have been accepted, and we are being supported by individuals and institutions. And then the fourth one is that people, our friends and the institutions, really admire us. They might even love us, and we might even admire ourselves. In other words, we have esteem, we have self-esteem and esteem from others, where we really feel loved and valued and respected. And then the very last one, which according to this system, you have to achieve the first four ones kind of first as a basis. And then the last one is you really can become yourself, because now you're relaxed, your basic needs are taken care of, both your physical needs and your emotional needs in relation to institutions and others. It's all taken care of. Now you can really go inside yourself and find yourself and express yourself. And he calls that self-actualization. So it starts on the physical level, and then progresses onto a group level, and progresses finally to that you as an individual can find yourself. So I see you and your school as a self-actualization process.
Oh my God, that's
yes.
True,
no, certainly. And I say machine as a sort of a joke, but a machine could be a symbol, could be a metaphor for it, but somehow people come in one way and come out the other way. You facilitate a certain transformational process. So I would make that a central aspect of a story. If I was going to help you make up a story, or if I am helping you make up a story, I would really recommend that sort of transformation as a central aspect of the story, that this is something that you found that you yourself needed, and you were able to achieve some transformations as a young person, as you explained, and then you set up a process, a place, a situation where others could also undergo this kind of process. So I don't know exactly how we can find a metaphor for your school, but I would look for it. I don't know if it's a magic touch or a magic bath or a machine or something, but something that people go through. In reality, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort by the person. It's not something that happens. You don't just wave a magic wand and people have that transformation, right? They have to really want it and work for it. But it can be represented perhaps metaphorically as that they get a magic wand. Okay. Anyone have any thoughts about Hema and her school and anything we've just been talking about in the last few minutes? Any thoughts about this 5-step process of human needs that we've introduced? It seems it's one of the most famous ideas in what, organizational psychology, or I guess in psychology. It's from a different part of psychology than like Sigmund Freud. I guess it's more about, it has to do with management and people and organizations. Does anyone know what the big 5 personality factors are? This is also a big thing that you have to know in this field of organizational psychology. When you're hiring when you're hiring somebody, you want them to have as many of these 5 characteristics as possible, and there are different versions of it, but
it's introvert, extrovert, and
Yeah.
thinker, feeler.
like that. You want them to be extroverted in the sense of being sociable and supporting others and being able to give and take with others and share with others. That's one of them. One of them is being intellectually open to new ideas and curious about new idea, always learning. I'm not even going to remember. I don't even remember all 5 of them. One of the acronyms is OCEAN, OCEAN. So the O is for intellectual openness. The N at the end is for being. You don't want them to be neurotic. Neurotic means what? Angry, short-tempered, having a lot of problems. You don't want a person to be neurotic. Conscientious. Conscientious means paying close attention to detail, being patient, being diligent, even if people are not going to see the backside of something, you'll paint the backside of it also, just for the satisfaction of doing a job well done. That's O for open-minded, C for conscientious, N for neurotic, which means you don't want them to be neurotic. The other 2 I'll tell you next week. Okay, let us go on. Who has found a volunteer for your storytelling work? Hema, you found somebody?
Yeah.
Usha, did you find someone? Yes? Bhavani Shankar? Yes?
Yet to still searching. Yeah.
Still searching, okay. Shankar?
Actually, I've found a person, but I have not communicated with him. That
Okay, okay.
But
And
I've selected few people, and I've also done the first level of scrutinization.
okay.
I got the person.
Well, the first level is just to explain what this is all about, which is the hardest part. There's the expression is, well begun is half done. And that's especially the case here, because you have to be able to explain what we're after here. Moshimi, did you find someone?
Yes,
Oh.
but I haven't started.
I think it's the person who's involved with the clowning.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's hear from those of you who Hema, I think you've had what, 1 or 2 meetings with the person?
1 meeting I had.
Okay, how did it go?
She was happy to share her experience and what happened in her life, what the turning point was. And she was ready to get coached. And she was
Can you tell us the turning point? Of course, don't tell us her name or anything, but can you tell us the type of turning point it was?
Actually, during her teenage, her father left the family due to some loss in the business, and the mother was all alone taking care of 3 children. And during that time, she went for a job, and there that person has taught them to be very disciplined and all. And there, that person, they considered him to be a great supporter for the family by that time,
Mm-hmm.
like financially and all. The three were going on a job to that company,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother was employed as a stenographer, and then um, later on, after that, they started going to the school. For 1 year, there was a break for all the three kids, and then they went to school and completed the school. And she went to a diploma college, a polytechnic, and completed her diploma in computer. Then she, with some petty earnings in the evenings. So I didn't even know that such a story will be there with this teacher. And she has completed her BA English. Then she has taken up MA English, and she has come as a primary English teacher with a B.Ed degree.
Okay, so a great sadness and tragedy was that the family broke up. The father left.
Yeah.
But then this other person appeared, who was it a man who had a business and was able to hire the mother and her two daughters, was it?
No, the mother was employed somewhere else,
Oh.
and the three kids were going to this company just
Uh-huh.
nearby their house. So,
And it was a man, a friend of the family, or a
no,
relative?
he was not a friend, and he was just a supporter. Okay, seeing that.
Uh-huh. And it's worked out. This man did not do anything improper. He's just been a good person.
Yeah, he has been very strict and disciplinarian, and they have learned a lot from that person. All three, still they are they have great regards to that person.
Wonderful. You know,
And,
when we hear a story, we're wondering this person who comes in will, you know, we know all that glitters is not gold. You can't judge a book by its cover. Many people will present themselves as, you know, saviors and heroes, but then they might try to take advantage in some negative way. But it's wonderful in this story. That was not the case. That person really was he really helped save the family.
and I was asking, how come you did a diploma, and then why did you turn to the graduation and all? You should have had a life in the career in the computer science.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying, like, I got humiliated that I didn't know proper English.
Mm-hmm.
That made me to learn English, and I took BA English. That was greatly inspiring me. So she took it up as a challenge that I will learn. So the humiliation made her to get completed with that, so she took it up for his life.
Okay. It's good that her physical safety and security was taken care of. I'm coughing, just a second.
So somebody, I did ask, what was that humiliation?
Mm.
So she was working as an accountant. Hey, you are a diploma person, no? How come accountant? And those days, they had this, what do you call this? All the accounts to be tally. So they need a computer person to drop everything, accounts in the computer. So she was employed there, and she made an error in the typing, and while talking to the person, she made an error. It seems even this you don't know, like that they've said, and in front of everyone, they laughed at her. It seems so that made her very. This often it happens, so that made me feel I should get it out, like out of this humiliation. I'll prove myself that I can learn English.
Mm-hmm. Good. So in terms of, are you getting a sense yet of what might be an inspirational or healing story for her?
I haven't asked that. What made her to get that inspiration? I didn't ask.
No, we're asking what story can you and she make up that will confirm and guide and comfort and inspire her. See, that's what we're doing here. We're coming up with stories that we can hold, that will help us, that will remind us, and that will give us strength, and that will, sort of be a key to our experience. Okay, so how many times have you met her?
Once I've met her once.
And are you scheduled to meet her again?
Yeah, I'm planning to.
Okay, so when you meet her again, as I say, the parts of the story that stick out to me are the loss of the father, which the loss of the family togetherness, which is so sad, and can sometimes be represented by a natural disaster. That there was a tsunami, there was an earthquake, there was a fire, there was a flood, and the home was shattered. Okay, but then this person appeared who was helpful to the three children. What can we call him? He's not a fairy godmother. He's not an angel, but he is. Some people might say he was heaven sent. He's a character who stepped in there and helped the members of the family get on their feet and progress. And now you've raised this other element where she was embarrassed by making a mistake because she couldn't speak and understand full English. So she took on the challenge to learn so she could be more successful and advanced. So see if so point out to her these turning points. See if she agrees that these are important turning points. See how she sees them, and then see if for either of you any metaphor or any fairy tale or any animal fable comes to mind which represents all this. And if she says, why, you have to think about what we have talked about, the value of metaphors, the value of having a fictional story that is a little bit separated from us, outside of us, that we can look to and get strength from. So that fictional story, it might have elements of nature, it might have elements that are shared by society, but it's more of it's something outside oneself that may give one strength. Okay, who else has had at least one meeting with a volunteer? Usha, have you met the person yet?
On phone, Eric. So, you want me to tell the story? His story?
Yes, give us a sense of the client's situation.
No, he wanted to join army, but he could not because of his parents' pressure. He had to do some professional course and earn money, but his desire was always to serve the country. So that's the thing. That's my friend's brother only. He wanted to come back and do the service. That's all. But I am not. You said just to listen to his story, not to do the healing story and all. So what I should do? Maybe next week I will create one healing story for him.
Well, you create it in collaboration with him.
Yes.
If he has any ideas, that's the best. But if he doesn't have any ideas, you suggest ideas and see if he likes it. But tell us more about his story. He wanted to join the army. He wanted to serve the nation. Is it? But his parents thought that he should make more money and support the family through some other method. So what did he do?
He has gone abroad and he's married and having children also. So now responsibility of children, everything. So, but his inner desire is always to come back and do some service to the country.
And how are his parents? Is he supporting them? Is that what? Did they need him to support them?
No, not required.
So his parents just thought that he would get further in life if he got more education and went abroad.
No. He's now is a big person, CEO of some company. So he has enough money, but he wants to come back and do something for the country.
You know, it's always interesting in a story, in a life story, when somebody has a ambition to affect not just their own lives, not just their own family, but the entire society. You know, that's a whole different level. Most people are just concerned with their own immediate family. But sometimes we come across somebody who breaks out of that and really wants to contribute or somehow interact on a more wide social level. So go ahead.
Yeah, and he is planning to adopt children of soldiers who need to be educated and all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what his plan. He's doing because he can stay there and do or support the paraplegic society of India, which is in Bombay.
Okay.
That's what he's planning.
Okay, so his story is that he had a certain idea about how he was going to help society, and he allowed his parents to talk him out of that. Yeah. And so now he's getting back to it by a different method.
Yes.
Okay, good. He's very determined. Yes. One way or the other, he's going to get to his goal of helping the larger picture.
Yes.
Okay, so see what metaphors or what fairy tale can somehow represent that.
And he has already done his will also, in that more than 75% goes to the soldiers' family and our border security force, and everything he has done. He's very clear about his aim and future, what has to be done. And because it was this desire from childhood, because his uncle was a freedom fighter.
There we go. It's in the family history.
Yes.
The sense of caring about more than just yourself.
So he wanted to join army, but because of parents, he had to take some professional course. He had to go abroad. So, but staying there also, he is thinking about that only.
Okay, good. Who else? Has anyone else seen a client yet? Shankar, have you located a person yet?
Yeah, I actually have found one person, but I am actually not sure that whether this person will continue, because I need to contract with him whether he would stay. He was how to say, he had lots of office pressure. He's one of my colleagues who's working in the same institution. So since there was a class, I was actually telling how how difficult and how we hurt ourselves and how we are supposed to heal. There was a general discussion regarding this, so we had a small group discussion. So this person, after lunch, he came to my place and he was like, he wants to just speak with me. And from home, he was, to be frank, he was not staying in particular situation. Sometimes for 5 minutes, he's speaking about his child. And after 5 minutes, he's coming to the organization, and then he goes to his parents, and then he goes to his friends. So there was no consistency. So maybe I did not contract with him properly or something like that. I'm not sure. but when maybe weekly once I get time to speak with him, so at that time maybe I can ask him the complete detail as to what is the actual thing, what is it actually stopping you, and then we can take it forward as well.
Well, if you're going to ask what's stopping you, you also have to ask what does he want?
Yeah.
Right? Those two questions go together.
Yeah. So I'm actually having a couple of questions, but still I have not completely asked him. Like, see, I'm going to use a couple of techniques which I have learned. So I don't want to take it so officially because he's a person very scared. So I'm actually thinking that once I tell him something like this, he might say, or he would say, no, bro, I'm not interested. I may leave. Something like that he would say. So I am actually taking him on his way, and but there is something called ethical principles which I need to follow. Like I need to tell him that this is going to be more of trial and error method, or I'm just going to use couple of techniques which I've learned, something like that, so that even he is aware that we have our own boundaries to set and we can just play inside.
Well, let's have a little discussion about, again, this question of what's the value of a metaphor, because I think some of you have gotten something out of doing it for yourselves. So let's consolidate that so it's really clear what we're going to say to these other people. For example, Moushami, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. You composed that lovely story, Manola. That was her name, Manola? And I sent it to everybody. I hope people have had a chance to read it. But it's about a woman who. What's the basic story? She loves books and stories, but then something happens. What happened?
And then she's actually the emperor's child who. Yeah.
She's the one who she recognizes that the emperor is going around with no clothes, and she says something, and everyone gets mad at her.
Yes, and she's ostracized after that.
She's ostracized. She's expelled. And what happens? Where does she go?
Yeah.
What does she do then? Moushami, what happens to her after she's ostracized?
I can't hear you clearly.
Oh.
And then she stops reading books. She stopped reading books because she thinks.
She thinks the books are the problem.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. She thinks the books are the problem, so she stops reading the books, and then.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, and then she grows up and she gets married, and then her husband turns out to be a monster.
Right.
At night.
Yes.
And she can't tell anyone because the deeper. And then one day the monster goes far away, and she's left with her 3 children. It's called, forgotten the name of the place. They move to another place.
Yes.
And there they find their tribe.
Yes, and she finds another soulmate who is doing something with a 3-dimensional book, something with technology, and then it works out.
Yes.
Okay, good. So what was the value for you? Can you say anything about what was the value for you of creating this kind of fairy tale-ish story that represented aspects of your life?
The fact that there is a story and that there's a lot of progress and the fact that she finds her tribe, and that she's a hero. So it's from darkness to light.
Okay, so the fairy tale sort of put it in a package, right? It sort of documented
Yes.
Things in a symbolic way. I mean, her in the story, the character, her husband, you said he turned into a monster at night, but I said it sounds like he was really a monster, but during the day he was disguised as a regular human. Okay, so either way, what you're talking about is that's representing a difficult relationship that you had with a person who had difficulties. But somehow you found it liberating or helpful to represent that person as a monster or someone who turned into a monster, and have that character be in a fairy tale. It's a lot neater than the real life version of things, right? Just to write someone off as a monster. Real life is a little more complicated than that, but sometimes it works and it makes sense to use that sort of symbol. Bhavani Shankar, what can you say about, how was it helpful or interesting to you to continue my story about the bamboo, where the poisonous bamboo shoot is helped by the big tree and is helped by a lot of water? What was there some sort of pleasure that you got from composing and telling that story?
Yeah, the untapped area wherever, and the need to grow, and the potential and drive to catch up what is required to be done is clearly visible there.
So the story gave you a chance to express those ideas. Is that it, or express those feelings?
Yeah. And it gives a gestalt view or the overview how it should end, how my life should end. Okay, so there are some untapped potential or some area which need to be completed. So I can put the focus and then get it.
So these stories can point one in the right direction.
Yeah.
As defined by oneself. Oneself has to decide what direction one needs to go in, and what aspects of oneself one needs to develop.
Exactly.
Anybody else have anything to say about the, when your client says, why should I make up a story? Do you have anything to say about why they should make up a story, or how the story might be helpful to them? You can give them examples, from our stories, from my story. Give them examples. That's probably the best way to communicate it. Okay.
Eric,
yes.
when we were listening to Usha, the inspiration for him to be an army man was from his uncle. A similar way, in my client, the inspiration might be the mother. The mother has took up the family caretaker, like without the father. She became the breadwinner with this stenography and all. So that might be the inspiration. However humiliated I am, I will take it up and face it, take the challenge. Maybe that, my mind.
Sure, good.
So by listening to Usha, I got this. Maybe that is the inspiration for her.
Good. Okay. And Usha, remind us, what was your inspirational story for yourself? You're on mute.
Yeah, my story I have told last time. My life story.
No, your inspirational story, based on your life story.
My life story?
No, the story that you made up, which took aspects of your life story, but used it in a new story. Didn't you make up a little story? I think you did.
It's not clear. It's not clear. I'm not getting your words.
Just a second. Right? Yes, the butterfly story.
Yes.
Yes. How did that? Was it enjoyable? Was it pleasurable? Was it valuable? Was it useful?
Yeah, I was very happy to make that story.
Why?
Because it is my story. I was feeling very happy to do that story.
Yeah, but you could have just said, I did this, I did that. What was the value of representing yourself as a butterfly?
Because the cocoon, my childhood is like inside the cocoon, and the one who came in my life. Can you hear, Eric?
Yes.
We're all hearing.
I'm not getting because my network is not okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. After that, the big butterfly, which is who is my husband, who has come in my life as a real gift for me. So that is why I was very happy to make that story.
Okay. So probably the best way to explain it is just to give an example of how you yourself made up a story and the others in the group made up a story. And I think your clients will get the picture. They will understand, even if they can't put it into words about why they should do it or what they'll get out of it. I think they'll understand. Okay, let's have a little presentation. Moushami, how's our connection? Are you hearing me pretty well?
Yes.
And you're hearing the other people?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing you, but I'm not sure if you can give your presentation today. What happened? Did you get the Wi-Fi hookup in your house yet? No, didn't get it quite yet.
Yes.
Okay, Moushami, you're going to be #1 next week of giving us these presentations about clowning and play and Sue Jennings. And I hope you are either you get Wi-Fi at your home or your daughter feels well and you can go to your friend's house. But the connection.
Can you hear me?
Not really. Connection is coming and going.
No,
It's
not yet.
yeah. It's yeah. Let's plan for next week for you. Okay, and then Rena was going to give us a presentation about her. I think her mother is a child psychologist, and she is getting ready to explain what she knows about child psychology that she has learned from her mother. And then Hema, I guess you're not going to present today, but maybe next week, is there something you can teach us about?
Yeah, the 3 things in psychology, like cooperate, compete, and conflict.
Cooperation, conflict, and what was the third one?
Conflict in the competition.
Competition. Okay, great.
So these things rule our life. So like
the three C's. Great. And has that just come up from your own experience, or did you see it in a book, or how did you get those 3 C's?
I have learned it through conversation, and I'm making out of that. I'm planning something.
Okay, good. So it sounds like it's your formulation. Excellent. And I told you I'm going to give you a presentation. Maybe I should give you 2 presentations. Next week I will present about organizational story as it relates to organizations, and the following week, story as it relates to consumers, buying and selling. Yeah, they're really 2 different subjects which the University of Madras has clubbed together. But next week it'll be about story in organizations, and it relates to organizational culture. And Bhavani Shankar, what are you going to teach us about next week or the week after?
Yeah, I will do something on the transactional analysis. Within 4 or 5 days, I will communicate to you. What is the topic like?
Okay. And we're going to begin
something like on the relationship, on the positive side of the relationship, how to develop or something like that.
Great. And Usha, do you have anything in mind yet? We'll see. If anything comes to mind, Usha, that you can teach us about, that'll be good. But now, without further ado, Shankar, you are going to give us a little presentation about especially roles in transactional analysis, right?
Yes.
And if I can do it, I'm going to put your PowerPoint on the screen.
Yeah.
So here, let me get it ready here. Share screen. Let's see. Now on my screen, all of you are at the top of the screen. Are you seeing it that way, everyone, or are you seeing it some other way?
Eric, it's better you put this as a full screen. Maybe you can just click F5 or something like that. You can make it a full screen.
I am
not sure.
Not sure about that.
And you just go to the slides, and after this TA, the second slide. Yeah, you're right. Go to the second slide and keep going.
Here, slideshow.
Yeah, slideshow.
Yeah, but it's resisting because we have this video conference thing going on. Why don't we just...
yeah, this is better. This is better. You're choosing the slides. That is better.
Yeah, let's just go with this. It shows the whole software process, but that's okay. Is this the first slide?
Okay, so you first start with the first one. Huh?
Okay, here's the first one.
So is the good time to start?
Go ahead.
Okay.
This is it.
Yeah. So welcome all. So this is going to be my presentation. I'm just going to give you a small overview. So before I start, let me contract you all. Like I am just doing my foundation course in TA. So if you have any in-depth conversation with this or something, I would obviously recommend you to go to another person. But since this is just a basic model which I'm going to explain, I'm sure most of your doubts and your thinking may change. So let us go to the first model. So when it comes to transaction analysis, so what is transaction analysis? So transaction analysis is nothing but understanding, evaluating, and making your transactions even more efficient and effective, okay, through certain models. So we have lots of models in TA. In some of the models are this ego state model. So this is termed to be one of the most fundamental thing. Like when it comes to accounts, we have something called golden rules, which the accounting principle falls on. Same way in transaction analysis, this ego state model.
Hold on a second. I think we better put ourselves on mute. Bhavani Shankar and Hema, better put yourselves on mute. Yes, much better. Okay, Shankar, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. So ego state model is what we use to compare all the time. So when it comes to ego state model, there is totally 3 circles. One is the PAC. So they won't basically stay as an ego state model. It's like most of a colloquial way of telling, do you know about the PAC model? That's how they used to ask. So PAC model is nothing but the ego state model. So this PAC, P represents parent, A represents adult, C represents child. In any situation you deal with or any pattern or something you have, you are supposed to put yourself in, you would be in any of these 3 ego states. Either you would be an parent and acting, or you would be an adult, or you would be a child. So let us in depth, let's understand more what is parent. Parent is basically certain parental behaviors which we have adopted from our parent figures. Okay, so we would have actually had that. It's not necessary that our parents are supposed to be our parent figures, but we would have somebody who had given a certain commands and instructions which we have blindly followed it. Okay, so that becomes that instructions and those parental commands and those line of hierarchy in your mind would become a parent. So adult is nothing but how well you are able to react in the here and now situation becomes an adult. And child is basically the representation of your child behavior which you have possessed when you were a child. So this is the basic structure of the ego state model. So you can go to the next slide. So the next slide is further it is divided. Okay, so the parent is divided into two. Okay, first parent, the first side is the nurturing parent and the C is the critical parent. So in every model we have both positives and negatives. So we have a negative nurturing parent and a positive nurturing parent, and a negative controlling parent and a positive controlling parent. At the same time, adult, we won't have any type of divisions, because adult is nothing but making a decision, making it efficiently and effectively with the given resource. That becomes an adult. And when it comes to child, it is nothing but it's divided into two segments. One is adapted child and a free child. Adapted child is something where from a parental or an adult situation from another person, we train ourselves to adapt as a good child. Okay, so good child is nothing but a adapted child. So free child is more of not responding properly and always taking whatever we say, child, they used to behave in a different way. So those things is more of a free child. So
now, excuse me, let me just ask a question.
Yeah.
These different roles, how are they worked with on a practical level? I mean, when you're being trained or when you see a client, do you ask them to think about their parent role or their controlling parent role or their nurturing parent role?
No, if you say these things, the client would actually forget completely what is the problem. This is completely for the counselor, therapist, or a trainer's point of view as to from which ego state this person is coming from. Okay, for example, I keep more commanding, I be more authoritative in nature, and the therapist or trainer or the person who has understand TA would actually understand that this person is coming from a parental ego state. Or if he is able to understand efficiently, and if he has done a thing which the child or a newborn person has done something like that, that becomes a child ego state. So it is completely the reference, and it is for the therapist, counselor, or trainer's point of view, and these things will not be told to the client. But if the client wants, how have I changed, or if the client asks anything, then we can go ahead and we can explain these things.
Okay, go ahead.
So can I go to the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is going to be a transaction. So whenever two people, when you get transaction is whenever you communicate from one person to another. So once you communicate from one person to another, there are lots of problems, I won't say, lots of things which has to be aligned properly. So there's something called complementary transaction in transaction analysis. Okay, so whenever you are actually speaking to one particular ego state and you get the reply from the same ego state, it becomes a complementary transaction. So let me give you an example. A teacher actually goes and asks their students like, okay, have you done your assignments which I've told? But if the child replies from the child ego state saying that no ma'am, I have not done any uh, I've not done any assignments which you have given, that becomes a complementary transaction. So complementary transaction is something whatever question you ask, you get the appropriate reply. So that becomes a complementary transaction. So next slide. And this becomes a cross transaction. So once you ask a question, okay, so you get a different type of answer or something like that, that becomes a cross transaction. So cross transaction is what this would result in the break in communication. So the other person, both the people, any one person would take some hard feelings or something like that. So that is cross transaction. So basically we would recommend to have a complementary transaction. So once you have a cross transaction, that's a break in communication. So any one of the PSCs, any one of the parties has to change their ego state in turn to re-establish the communication. So this becomes, so our ideal thoughts is to bring the total communication network in such a way that both the parent and both the ego states are having a healthy transaction. So this becomes a then we move to a complementary transaction. So next. So when it comes to contamination, so whenever it is like this, there are certain chances. Okay, see, I'm Uma Shankar. I am not Uma Shankar, where I'm just a separate person. Okay, I'm here. I'm able to speak like this because of certain type of knowledge or certain type of information which I have got it from a parent or an adult or a child, from another person. So what happens is I never always take the positive one. There are chances in which I take the negative aspects. So when it comes to parent, maybe when I get an immediate situation which I'm not able to handle, I start screaming and I start shouting. So I am not inviting my adult to take place. So what happens, the first diagram, if you see, the parent is getting contaminated to the adult. So in between there is a black, a small oval-like shape. So that is termed to be as contamination in the first case. The second case, what happens is whenever you see a snake or something, let me be frank, latest about 2 days before for Diwali, I was in my village. So I just saw a snake. So as an adult, what I did was I shook it up and it went to another direction. So if it would have been a previous me, I would have made a big shout and I would have called a couple of people and made it a big fuss. So that is basically when I operate from a child ego state. But I acted as an adult and I took my own ideas and decisions and I was able to come out of the difficulty. So that is the adult transaction. And the next is there are chances in which both the transactions are affecting the adult situation, either the parent or the adult. So whenever you want to move to an autonomous living or something, you need to make sure that your parent, adult, and child, all three things are separated. So as a human being, you need to make sure that these things are not interlinked. So when it is interlinked in a positive way, then that's good. If it is interlinked in a negative way, obviously you would end up in cross transaction. So can I go to the next slide? So how to move to autonomous living? So that's what I told you. Autonomous living, you can move only if you keep your parent, adult, child in a different position, and putting all the parent, adult, child in a positive way, and then moving to the next level of communication would actually help you to have a good and a healthy transaction with each and everybody. So I forgot to put one slide. There's something called I am okay, you're okay. So whenever you see a person or whenever you come in contact with a person, initially what you would have is there are four things. Okay, I am okay, you are not okay. I am not okay, you are not okay. And or maybe I can just put this slide if you want. We should always make sure that we contact the other person with I am okay, you're okay situation. So once what happens in this way, we subconscious level, we are able to understand that we are giving an equal weightage how we treat ourselves. So that in this way, the contamination which would happen would also reduce, because we treat everybody equally. So this is one model which we basically use. And further, there are lots of decontaminations which you can do. So how actually you will do decontamination is, actually you need to analyze each and every situation which you are following, and then what you need to do is you need to keep all those DACs separate, and you need to consciously get aware that this is the mistake you are doing, and this is what you are crossing up, and consciously you keep coming out. You would be obviously coming out of the negative transactions, and you will be moving to an autonomous loop. So I think I'm done with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, let me come back to
any questions?
Stop share. Okay, there we are.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, now a parent is also an adult, isn't it?
Parent is also an adult. If you take transactions in an adult situation, then it becomes an adult. See how I see the world, okay, how I contact the world, okay. So I would take certain informations and assume that this is basically a parent, okay, and I would take certain informations from the parent and also associate it as an adult. So it all depends upon the person, how he takes insight. So whether he's a parent, adult, or child, if I take it and I superimpose it on myself, putting it as a parent, then I'm a parent, an adult, and child. But the thing is, you should also feel that whether it is solving the problem. So whenever you are in an adult situation, here and now situation, being an adult, understanding the here and now situation would actually help you to solve any type of problem which you face in day-to-day activity.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example so that you understand, okay. Mm-hmm. So I am going in a car, okay. I am getting an accident, okay. So if it is a parent, what I would do is I would come down and I would tell them, see, I will sue you, I know law, I will call the sergeant, and you have broke my bonnet, and I will file a case against you, and I'll put you in the court, and I will make sure I remand you in the jail. So this is more of a parental behavior. So if it's an adult behavior, what would you do is you would come down and you would speak with them, saying that, okay, so we have made an accident. You have insurance with you. Okay, I have insurance with me. Let's discuss as to what next we can do, so that even you are saved at the same time, even I am also in a good mood. Mm-hmm. That would be an adult situation. So if it's a child, what would happen is, once you met with an accident, you become so scared, you become nervous, and you don't know what to do. And you either keep your car and run away to your home, or go to a nearby police station, or you end up crying. Mm-hmm. So these three transactions you have. So basically, the adult is what actually the problem solving is. If you are a parent, more energy is spent and you are not solving the problem. So at most, our intention is to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So when we have an adult to adult transaction, for example, we are able to understand that there's an accident, and basically, if you are a parent and if your transaction is shouting, you need to consciously understand that parent in this type is not going to solve, and you need to take an adult situation, saying that, okay, we had an accident, so how efficiently and effectively we are going to make so that both of them are in a win-win situation. So we need to move on in such a way that we are able to focus completely to a solution instead of creating a bigger problem.
Great. So the adult character is more mature.
Yeah, more mature. Mm-hmm. And to the point, without making predetermined judgments or something. With the given resource, you're using it efficiently and effectively to get a good solution. That's it. That's a adult situation.
Great.
But we also need to be sure that predominantly being an adult is also wrong. Predominantly being a parent is also wrong, and predominantly being a child. You need to experience all these three things. It's not like you're supposed to always be an adult. Okay, you need to go to nearby. No, it's not like that. It is basically you have a semi-permeable boundary is what we say. Parent, adult, and child. All these three transactions, we have something called semi-permeable boundaries, wherein you can go inside. We can go inside a parent, and you can also come outside as a. You can come inside adult, and you can move between the quadrants, but you need to make sure that you don't stay or you don't be more in one particular quadrant.
Okay.
You need to keep
Good.
moving.
Okay. Now let's just think for a moment about how this. Method could be useful to us in this work of composing imaginary stories, right? We might create a story that has an adult character, which is a part of ourselves. We might create a story that has a child character, which is a part of ourselves, and in the story they might interact. I've mentioned that some psychologists especially identify a character that many of us have inside, which is the injured child, or the angry child, or the child who feels that she didn't get, she's still suffering because she feels she never got the love and attention and support that she wishes she would have gotten. So then we carry within us that character. We also carry within us a joyful child who, is just thrilled with life and everything. So when we compose stories, we might want to use some of these characters who are representing aspects of ourselves. All right. Do you have any other thoughts, Shankar, or anybody, about how this this system of these three characters, how it relates? How does it relate to what we've been doing in this course? Any thoughts about it? Hema, do you have a thought about it?
Actually, we do this for our students as well as parents and teachers. Eric Bernays' 3 ego states, where we will tell the children, those who are undergoing the adolescent stage, teenage, you're no more a child, you're entering the adult stage. So you need to be more analytical, logical, and reasoning. So these terms will make them, like how Shankar said, being present to the moment here, right now. That may not click. So we give these terms like be analytical, see why it happened, what is the reason for the thing, and how you can do things. So that is the adult state, and you may not enter into it immediately. You are into that. That process is the teenage. So be keen towards, be aware that you are becoming an adult. And to the parents, during the parent-teacher the conversations, we do talk about, because the children, other than the school, they are with the parents, the families. So by that time, they do enter any of these three. They may become a negative parent, criticizing the children. So instead of being a positive, nurturing parent, they may not get right way of family environment. Children suffer a lot because of that. So we do talk to the parents, be aware that never do criticism, do not do finger pointing, and be positive criticism, or be an adult conversation when they are in teenage. So children are also aware that being belligerent or the adaptive child may anytime become a negative child. So, and then negative parent will create only a negative type of child. These awareness we create with the three crowds. Like with the teachers, they lose their emotions and they enter into the child state, or they do throw things, or whenever you are not present to you, the moment that you are an adult. So these three states happen in all the people. This way we do share with them.
So each category has subcategories. In parent, you have the nurturing parent and the angry parent. In child, you have the misbehaving child, the obedient child, the child who feels in pain. See, Jung would call these archetypes, but in this branch of psychology, they're called roles. But I'm happy, Hema, that you say this. It's useful, and you even discuss this with the students and their parents about the roles that they're in and the roles they could be in.
Very beautifully explained, Shankar. I should thank you for creating this for everyone. And it was very interesting, the slides. And you adding up, Eric was adding that 3 roles, we will cross all the 3. That was really very eye-opener sort of thing. Everyone are present to that, all the ego states. When we hear this word ego, we think it is something not to be there in the person. It will be there. All the 3 states will be there.
Has to be there.
Okay, so when you are talking with your volunteer client, you might invite them, every one of you, you might invite them when they're making up a fairy tale or some sort of story that represents their experience. You might invite them to use these different characters: a mature adult, an angry parent, a nurturing parent, the different type of children, and see if it catches on with them, see if it clicks, see if they like manipulating these characters who are really aspects of their own selves. Okay?
So there's one more thing. 2 months ago, I actually was presenting on escape hatch. Escape hatch is something where people would have certain thoughts of suicide, homicide, and psychosis. So suicide is like killing yourself. Homicide is killing the other person, and psychosis is completely going crazy.
Yes.
So how to actually use ego states to understand and come out of this type of clutch. So what we do is we need to actually understand from which ego state the person is actually coming from. And then we need to invite that person's adult to take position by giving certain transactions, like asking his adult whether it is logical, whether it is ethical, and all those situations, and making his adult aware that what he is doing is wrong. And then once you pull the adult, obviously in a conscious level, there would be a change. So periodically, once the client keeps a good counseling and keeps inviting the adult, that would obviously go to the subconscious level, and the person comes out of the escape hatch and moves to an autonomous movement. So
wonderful.
It's really,
and we haven't done much of it here yet, but I want to remind you of, I think, step number 5 in this storytelling for counseling and coaching. The step 5 is talk to these characters. And when you talk to the character, you are in the best position to step inside the character and answer back as the character. So please role play and speak to and as these different characters. And encourage your volunteer clients also to do so. Characters don't exist only in the story that they live in. I mean, they exist before the story, they exist after the story. They have their own lives, independent of the particular episodes in the story. So so get to know the characters and speak to them and as them. Great. Okay, let's stop recording for one thing. I'm going to stop recording now.